Yes, I think they should sit. Good morning. Good morning, or good afternoon. Welcome to this session on plotting an efficient and just path to a net zero energy system, the role of policies and economic signals. I have to disclose, this is a very special session for me, because I have worked with all the panelists that are today here, absolutely all. So this is the history of my career, and all the panelists that are here, except I have to say that Greg, because you've only been in this role for a few months, as far as I understand, have also marked my professional trajectory. So it's a really privilege to be with you today. So the just transition, yeah, well, anyway, we are living in difficult times, right? Because we need to move into this energy transition and at the same time manage it and make it just. And I think we're going to hear from the panelists talking about this. It's a short session. It's going to be 30 minutes, and some of the panelists will have to leave. So stay with us, and I think we're still missing Farhana, but she will be coming soon. So we first are going to hear from Greg Hans, Minister of State and the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Transition. Then we will hear from Fatih Birol, impressive trajectory. Thank you, Fatih. Your reports, the WIO and the recent announcements have really set the pathways. Ignacio Galán will follow, chairman of Iberdrola. Farhana is already here. Farhana was the one that coined the net zero, and so now everybody is behind net zero, and finally we will finalize with Laurence Taviana, the architect of the Paris Agreement. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Greg, and I'm going to also leave you the stage. Thank you, Greg.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome again to the UK Pavilion. Thank you, Maria Mendeluzzi, for that fantastic introduction, and thank you for the incredible personal commitment that you've made to this project and to the overall cause, and for being such a great friend of many of us involved in this space. Thank you to Scottish Power, Iberdrola, Mr. Galan, the whole team for co-hosting us today here as well. We're just a little over halfway through all the Energy Day panel events, pavilion events. If you feel you've seen me before, that's because I think this is my fourth event, or maybe even fifth event today. But they have been fantastically diverse, and it shows the UK's huge commitment to the climate change agenda in many, many different ways. But I hope everybody's been enjoying these events. They're not only hosted here, but they're also broadcast, available on YouTube, and so on. So tackling climate change is the defining mission of our time. Supported by the leadership shown by the UK government, companies like Scottish Power are at the forefront of driving the green energy revolution, which will underpin the UK's transition to a net zero economy. The UK government has just unveiled a landmark commitment to decarbonise the UK's electricity system by 2035 to help us build a secure, homegrown energy sector that is less reliant on fossil fuels and less exposed to volatile global wholesale energy prices. We've also just launched our net zero strategy 2 weeks ago, which I think has been groundbreaking in showing exactly how, not just the goal of reaching net zero by 2050, but how we are going to do it. We've also launched with other key donor countries the International Just Transition Declaration as well. Donors have committed for the first time to supporting a just transition internationally, underpinned by 6 commitments that provide for support for social dialogue mechanisms, the creation of quality jobs, sustainable supply chains, and the development of long-term industrial strategies in developing and emerging economies. True success in delivering a just transition to net zero will require cooperation between government, industry, and local communities. And so I welcome the publication today of Scottish Power's Just Transition Strategy. It's a powerful statement of intent, committing the company to working with the communities it serves to help share the benefits of the net zero future widely. The UK government shares these principles. We will all need to work in partnership with local communities, consumers, employees, supply chains, and policymakers to realise our shared net zero ambitions. I hope we all have a shared commitment to ensuring that the energy transition is fair and that the people we serve have a stake in shaping it. Decarbonisation represents one of the UK's most ambitious infrastructure and technology programmes in living memory, and the economic and environmental case for pursuing this is now aligned as never before. A green recovery that spurs investment, creates jobs, strengthens the UK domestic supply chain, and supports communities through change, that's not only the right thing to do. Faced with the extent of our climate responsibilities, it is ultimately the only thing to do. Now, I'm now pleased to hand back to Maria. I have to go to another event, I'm afraid. And our panelists, as I mentioned, Fatih Birol, Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, Ignacio Galan, the Chairman and CEO of Iberdrola, and Farhana Yamin, the Associate Fellow, Environment and Society Programme at Chatham House, for a discussion on the approaches to delivering a just local and global energy transition to achieve net zero. So lastly, a big thank you to our audience in the pavilion and for those watching from across the world for joining us in this discussion. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Greg, and sorry you have to go. So let me move now to Fatih. So just for disclosure, my first job was in the International Energy Agency, and Fatih told me, Maria, if you want to continue in this path, you need to do a PhD. So I did in energy, and so I'm very thankful for your guidance. I've been impressed on where you have taken the IEA forward, and I have to say that we're very proud of the recent work that you've done in pushing a step further all the governments to go, beyond oil and gas. But this transition is tough, right? We're seeing the volatility of energy prices, and so there is a recent report as well that you launched last week, very interesting, on how can the IEA assess companies in navigating a transition that is not going to be easy and is going to have hiccups, but is pointing in the direction that actually we need to move forward and invest in the future, right? In renewables, in storage, in interconnection, that's what is going to give us more stability in terms of policy, in terms of energy prices. So over to you. Do you want to come here, Fatih? Okay.
So thank you very much, Maria. Yes, I met Maria. We were working in the same corridor 25 years ago, maybe. And the one thing is that she didn't change at all. I changed incredibly. I can recognize myself, but I can recognize Maria. So she didn't change at all. So Maria, congratulations. But you had a very good path. I remember, in fact, one of the things, knowing that we had now in the IEA, very small at that time, a Spanish speaker. Some of you may not know, but I am an energy person, but I love poems. And I read almost all the poems of Pablo Neruda. Some of you may know Pablo Neruda. And one of them I didn't understand. It was only Spanish available. I asked Maria to translate it to me in English. So I remember it was one of our first discussions on energy. Maria, we are also very proud of you that you have been now going from strength to strength, and like many colleagues. Dear colleagues, before going to answering the question of the market volatility and energy transitions, I want to share with you one news. Now, in the last few days, we have heard, in addition to the previous ones, several climate pledges coming from governments. The last one being India, for example, plus there were pledges on the methane emission reductions. So I asked my colleagues in Paris, where our headquarters are, if those pledges are implemented, carbon neutrality pledges of all the countries until yesterday, and the methane emission pledges, 105 countries, 106 in fact, what would it mean with the temperature increase trajectory we have in? So the answer they gave me is really encouraging. If those pledges, there's a big if there, if those pledges are fully and timely implemented, then we are in line with a temperature increase of 1.8 degrees Celsius, which is not bad at all. It's definitely encouraging. And as such, I told my colleagues, Paris and Glasgow are getting closer and closer. I think the colleagues like Lawrence, you mentioned the architect of Paris. I don't know if you're architect or engineer of Paris, Lawrence. I don't know who is the architect of or engineer of Glasgow. They are really coming together. Of course, pledge is something, to implement is something else. I know it very well, and I am very thankful to co-presidency, tasking the International Energy Agency to track those pledges and how they compare with what they do, what they say. Every year, we are going to publish it. So a bit of a gendarmerie of the energy world and the numbers that we are going to follow. Now, after this rather encouraging news, in my view, I will try to answer the question of Maria. Everywhere where I go, there is a question. This energy market volatility, the prices, high gas prices, high coal prices, is it the first crisis of clean energy transition? Is it because we did a lot for clean energy and we are ending up, we didn't invest enough in coal and the others, we are ending up with this problem. It's a serious problem. My answer is absolutely not. The reasons of the coal, gas, and oil prices have nothing to do with the fact that we push the clean energy too much. If there is something to do with that, perhaps we push too little. So this is very important. And I know, just come to me, anybody who tells you that the gas prices are high because of clean energy, send them to us. Because what are there are major fundamental reasons, which are supply disruptions, outages, maintenance work, and the some politics of the major gas exporters. If you feel any help, that anybody tells that they misportrays this crisis in an inaccurate way, that is the problem of the clean energy, send it to us. 9 rue de la Fédération 15e in Paris. So this is we are where we are. Please send them to us. This is nothing to do with the clean energy. Now, what is needed, however, is the solution is accelerating clean energy transition. So if we were to able to fill the gap between the energy demand growth and the existing energy supply, we had to fill this with the growing clean energy options and that of energy efficiency. And here I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate my friend Mr. Galan, who was one of the pioneers who saw in the energy industry in Europe and beyond the smell, the green industry. It is coming and make the necessary steps. Congratulations, Ignacio, for that. I remember many years of pushing the agenda. But the solution to the energy crisis is more clean energy, more renewables, more electric cars, and more energy efficiency. This is to be completely wrong and inaccurate to put the blame of the volatility we have on the clean energy. One last line, Maria. If the governments are not able to push the clean energy options in a timely, in a sufficient manner in the future, I see a lot of volatilities coming. This is not the first one. So if they want to address the price volatilities, the solution is very clear. More renewables, more efficiency, more electric cars, and clean energy technologies. Otherwise, there is a looming risk of series of market volatilities, especially in the power markets, in Europe, in US, and beyond, which might be, unfortunately, I should say, used as a reason for many commentators, with or without knowing the reasons, as a political barrier for further policy action. So therefore, we have to be alerted to this fact. And again, if anybody says something along those lines, please answer them. If you need any help, send them back to us. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatih. I take three points. We are 1.8, so we still need to go to 1.5. I'm sure that we need to deliver, Laurence, but when you think about Paris, where you were and where we are, you must be so proud, because Laurence started all this movement of pledges, etc., with the Global Action Agenda at that time. The second point, where it is, if we want to address volatility, let's invest in renewables, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency. After the IEA, I went and worked for Ignacio. And so it is impressive what Ignacio has done in the 20-plus years, because he's a leader that is able to perform and transform. He has completely transformed Iberdrola while performing, which is not easy as business. And since day one, renewables was on top of his agenda. And the other thing that I see as a leader is that, it's not that he was a leader. He is a leader because he has a strategy for the next 5 years in green hydrogen, etc. So anyway, I hope to be inspired by your words now. Ignacio, over to you.
So, it was, yes. So thank you very much, Maria. So Maria was working with me for a few years. So she was already participating in the first vision that we have already 20 years ago to try to take seriously what has been a green Kyoto, and transforming a company with a traditional utility in something different, which I will comment to you. So thank you, Maria, for being already had the opportunity to be already beside me during this period of time. So I'm very pleased what you are saying, Fatih. So that there are already new pledges, and these new pledges makes already then our target is closer. So, but you mentioned a word which is implementation. I think I've been participating during the last few years in many COPs from Copenhagen. I've been already in certain United Nations meetings as well. And I was using always a word, a sentence, which is action, action, action. It's not time for words, it's time for action. I'm very pleased to hear already what I've already heard from the Prime Minister. The blah, 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 blah is over. So action and action, and now you call implementation. So I think we have already a decade. If the things are not done during the next 10 years, probably we'll never achieve what we are all us trying to achieve. So, and that means that we need to move from these fossil fuels to renewables. We need to accelerate electrification, but the time now is over. So I think the sense of urgency is something which is very much needed. So I'm telling you, and I think that's possible. I think when I joined the company, Iberdrola 20 years ago, was already a traditional utility with coal, with oil, with gas, and renewables. Was that renewables? A part of hydroelectric we have traditionally, but the other one, they don't understood very well. The fact, I think when I went to my first board and I was presenting my strategic plan saying that I would like to invest 16 billion euros in renewables, said, what? What is, they approved because I explained very well. They said, fine. I tried to change the color of the company as well, from blue to green, because we have a hydroelectric, the water is blue, so what's traditional color? It took to me 3 board meetings to convince my board to change to green. That's why all of us, we are already distinguished very well what is ScottishPower, what is Iberdrola, because all of us, we are wearing already green ties or green scarves. So I think during this period, I've already invested 120, 130 billion euros. And we have already expanded the company for many countries. And I think, and we've already in this moment, we are not the three largest utilities worldwide, we are the number 20 or number 21. So I think that was a real opportunity. We don't make a sacrifice only for already making a better planet. I think we make a better planet, but we make a better company, larger company. So we supply in this moment electricity to 100 million people worldwide, but our emission is 7 times lower than the average of our peers. So we have less than 50 grams megawatt hour in this moment. And our ambition is for 2030 to be zero. So and for avoiding temptation, today, of course, we have no one coal power plant, no oil power plant, all has been closed, 70 has been closed, shut down during this period. But to avoid the temptation, because of this crisis you mentioned, the some government decided those ones which are closed since many years, but still are standing there because of permits for demolishing. We are just demolishing the towers. Last week we demolished the tower, the one beginning of December. We will demolish the largest one here in close to Glasgow, close to Edinburgh, sorry, which is Longanet, which was the largest coal power plant of this country. We will demolish the tower to avoid any temptation to go back again to coal. So, and I think during this period, I think is not enough what has already done. Our commitment is to continue investing in that one. So we have a plan to invest 150 billion euros during this decade, 175 billion from now to 2025. Only this year we're going to invest something like 18 billion, so which I think is a huge amount. But I think we do that, I insist on that one, because we feel that is a real opportunity. Already, we can help to improve the quality of and the health of people. We are already just improving the activity in many areas. So I think who can already say that here in Britain, when we have started investing in renewables, then we are not already industry renewable at all. In this moment, 70% or more than 70% of our suppliers are British. So that is already industry has been created already ad hoc for supplying all for ourselves. We have already, in this moment, sustaining more than 400,000 jobs worldwide in our supply chains, and we would like to maintain this one. So we feel already that we need already, for all those things, a clear long-term vision. I think I'm very worried when you are already, as I am, for 20 years, I've already seen very many crises. Now it's a crisis because of gas, it was a crisis because of oil, it was a crisis because of something. If we change our long lights to short lights, and we take already a strategic decision, long-term decision because of one-off situations, in that case the chances of making mistakes is huge. So that's why I think we need already certain things in this context. The first one, acceleration implementation. I'm already for many years demanding a better and faster permitting process. Has no sense that building a power plant, renewable, solar, wind, whatever, takes 1-2 years at most. And the permits take 5, 7, 10 years. I was saying today to an interview, a doctor can already give you just a prescription. We can kill you, but I think the doctor is responsible. For making a permit is needed not only then our biologists, engineers, whatever certified, what they are doing is correct. There are several steps in the different administration prior to that to be approved in order to whatever to protect the fauna, to protect whatever thing, which I absolutely agree. But we can make things in a faster manner. So the second thing is we have not already to change the rules. Sorry, I finished.
Yeah, thank you.
So to change the rules, I think we have seen because of this situation that the principle who polluters pay has been the principle in which we base all this energy transition. It's changed in some countries who polluters pay, and those which are not polluting are paying more. So that is no sense. So I think it's no sense now that certain technologies which are not polluting, just because it has been built prior to a certain date, they have to pay as much as those which are polluting. And the last one is stability, predictability. When we make investment, it's for 40 years, 50 years. We have the funds available, but those which are providing the funds are looking for this stability and predictability. Cannot be changed the rules at the middle of the game. And that is very important. I think to execute, we have to be executing. Stability, predictability, rule of law, and not changing already the game, the rules at the middle of the game. So I think I'm optimistic. I think your news is very good. I think this pledge are very good, but I think we need altogether execution and measure this execution. Because in many cases, they are already nice words, but I think they are not already measured in a standard manner, and everybody looks good, but we have to distinguish those ones which are good than those ones which are not so good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ignacio. So I take 2-3 words: bold leadership, accelerate the implementation. So this is about implementing. Okay, and then of course carbon pricing and stability, good policy framework so that business can go faster. Let me turn to Farhana. So Farhana, I don't know, for those that probably, I'm not sure if you know or not, but she created the concept of net zero. We invited her to a meeting with WBCSD in London. I perfectly remember, and now there's this huge movement. 89% of the world global emissions are covered by a net zero target. Now we need to go faster, but anyway, you have to be really proud. We want to hear from you, what are the challenges and opportunities to bring those countries into the energy transition? Thank you, Farhana.
Well, thank you very much. As we're sort of reminiscing a little bit, yeah, my very first job when I was 21 was with the Central Electricity Generating Board, which was a vertically integrated, nationally owned energy company which owned the national grid. So I was part of that generation that saw it privatized, and it shifted then from coal mainly to gas. And now we're shifting again to a mainly renewable base. So even in my own little lifetime, I've seen the energy sector transform itself. So I'm very encouraged by the words that you said, that you're going to go bolder, faster, and that actually, you know, as a chair, you need to go out and be our champion with laggard companies, frankly, who are not pulling their weight, those who are still polluting and who are damaging the reputations of those who are going faster. I also want to say thank you to Laurence, because actually in 2013 she commissioned me and a couple of co-authors, Nicholas Hearn and Eric Heites, to produce a legal framework to see what would be the ideal Paris agreement, what was to come the Paris Agreement. So I want to thank you, Laurence, for doing that back in 2013. And the concept of a phase out of polluting gases was at the heart of that. And that's what we must all do. We must all face up to the fact that developing countries do not have a right to pollute the atmosphere either. And that's not to argue against fairness. It's not to argue that they have not caused the majority of emissions. It's not to. It's totally understandable that they should want to do the transition on a fair, justice-based paradigm, which is why we have provisions for support of even the major countries moving in this direction. And that's why, you know, the Paris Agreement, like the Kyoto Protocol, like the 1992 Convention, all of which I've helped negotiate, all of them relied on a paradigm of fairness, of help, of solidarity, of recognizing that still some of the technologies, some of the capital, some of the costs, even though we now have renewables that are much, much cheaper and cleaner, still require upfront capital, and many countries do not have access to capital, and certainly the vulnerable countries that I'm working for do not have that kind of, do not have the deep pockets and do not have the ability to transform their systems. But nevertheless, they are doing that. So here I'm representing Bangladesh, which is chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, a group of countries that originally came together just before COP15 in Copenhagen. There are now 55 countries who are members of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, and they are taking a real leadership position. In many cases, they've committed to a phase-out, a net zero phase-out, or a phase-out, and a switch to 100% renewable, in some cases by 2030, in some cases by 2040. And that's not reported very much, because they're not the major emitters. You know, collectively, these countries add up to more than 1 billion of the world's population, and they emit under 5% of global emissions. So you don't hear about them, and they're not the problem. The G20 are the problem, and the UK is a leading player in the G20, is at the leadership pack, but the entire G20 is so far behind where we need to be, and we also need to accept that. We are nearer to, as Fatih Birol said, if all the heroic assumptions are made about the implementation of the pledges, the initiatives that came forth in the last 2 days. And my heart is heavy. You know, I still have come to Glasgow with a broken heart from all the broken promises. And most of the negotiators that I work with are feeling that. They are tired of the broken promises. So it's a heroic assumption that is made in the analysis. Our scientists have also number crunched the figures. And it's nearer 1.9 if every single promise is implemented and the financing and the policies and the actual support is there, which is currently not the case. So we need the support of everyone in this room, everyone who's watching. We need every sector to play a leadership role, especially the energy sector. And we need to recognise that this must be done in a way which is just. The vast majority of Africa, nearly 2 billion people, don't have access to clean energy anyway. So we must do this transition in a way which is going to level up, as in the words of the UK, which is going to create a just energy transition and involve and invite all of those developing countries who are looking to meet even their basic needs, especially as their economies are in meltdown. I'm sorry if I'm sounding gloomy and doomy, but this is what is the reality here that is not being spoken about. Most of those economies are, you know, hugely in debt, in an economic and financial meltdown, and we are not even delivering as a group of G20 countries the very basic funding and finances that was promised. So all of those pieces matter to a just energy transition. And finally, I think, you know, we can do better than that here. I think I would like to encourage Laurence. She's still a very powerful voice, still a mentor and someone who's very influential, to really argue for the inclusion of operationalizing 2 preambular paragraphs that are in the Paris Agreement. Paragraph 10, which is about just transition, and preamble paragraph 13, which is about climate justice. So those 2 provisions, if we had frameworks that added fairness, and fairness to workers, to sectors, to communities, to those who've caused the least, if we put them at the heart of the conclusions of this COP, then we will get to 1.5, no problem. We will reverse the harm, the cycle of broken promises by bringing everyone on board. So I want to give this in an optimistic sense, in my nerdy legal way, that there are solutions actually, and justice is a solution, fairness is a solution, bringing everybody on board is actually a solution and is the way to efficient transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Farhana. Thank you, Farhana. I work with businesses, and we sent a letter to the G20 countries, and the ask was very clear. It was the 100 billion commitment needs to be honored, at least. Okay, the business community will invest, no? But I think the government, so business cannot, but governments need to honor their commitment. So you have all the support from the Women Business Coalition in that journey. Also, just transition, it's fundamental. Because if we don't bring people along, then we're going to change leaders, and then we're going to go back to square one. Okay, so not only that, for example, we have started something, it's called the SME Climate Hub, which is precisely to work with the small companies, not the ones that come here. I come from that event. It's not enough, but I think we hear more and more voices from the business community supporting the cause, but this is not enough. I think we need to do more. But let me move to Laurence Toubiana. I'm a big fan of Laurence, like many in this room. And I think there are 2 things that I have heard here. I would love your view. Is this global stocktake and the fact that the ratchet mechanism, which is a brilliant idea that you created, I hear that we might do it on a yearly basis, which would be wonderful. The second one, of course, we need to do that as well for the business community, and of course to talk about the just transition and how can we operationalize that. So Laurence, over to you.
Thank you. And in a way, of course, as Farhana, I think we can be, we have to have optimist eyes, but we have to be very realistic eyes as well. And again, when you look at what has happened since the last 6 years, a number of commitments have not been delivered. So it's really a moment of seriousness. I'm repeating that everywhere. Preparing Glasgow and here, the moment of Glasgow is truth and honesty, because we can't just delay that. So that's very important. And that's why, because we lost 6 years, in a way, more or less, for good reason and bad reason, the withdrawal of Paris Agreement from Paris Agreement from the US, which has left a number of countries out of the loop, in a way, thinking that finally that was not that important, even if they don't withdraw, they didn't withdraw. Another element, of course, was a COVID pandemic, and of course the recovery elements, and which has been really going back to normal, which was not the good normal, it was a fossil fuel-based normal. So for all this reason, we have lost these years, and that's why I'm arguing now that, and I really recognize all the very good, and I'm happy, of course, because as I again sharing memories with Farhana, the net zero by 2050 on the round and the 1.5 as included in Paris Agreement was a last negotiation of the last day. So this is good that we show that now in a way going and in a way diffusing in every, and including the business, Maria, that you are leading so much. But then we need, because we have lost these years, and because the emission for the moment, at least when you look at the numbers, are rising, and in particular this year, 2021, they are just bump up. And I hope, of course, it will not be the case next year, but you know, they are embedded already in the activities, so there will be no miracle in 2022. So for this reason, we need to revise and increase the pressure on, you have to deliver real implementation, not only targets. And we have to check, everyone has to check to each other to create the trust that is probably lacking now. And so that's why I'm arguing that, and it's really very much in the spirit of Paris Agreement, and we don't have to invent anything, but we should not wait 2023. We can start next year. One, because some countries have not brought better NDCs still. Because it's very good to have a net zero target, but we don't have the precise plan to get there. So let's take every year, you know, and that's why COP are useful. Sometimes it seems we are not advancing there, but in reality it's the only place where we have the peer pressure operating. And when finally governments and business and everyone are in front of their constituency. So that's what is very useful, to keep the annual meeting, even if there was a lot of discussion about why we should meet every year now that we have to implement. And just because of that, because we have to check if we are implementing for real. And that where the financial question comes. A number of commitments that have been taken over the last 2 or 3 days are conditional of funding, including the Modi plan for being net zero by 2070 and the massive increase in clean energy, in solar energy, is conditioned to access to capital markets at reasonable cost. So everything will rely on the capacity to bridge the finance gap. And for the moment, when you look at the private finance, I saw this number yesterday, I was less than, you know, all this alliance for climate finance on the private finance side, still now for the moment is 0.5% of what this private finance coalition is delivering is on climate. So we need a step up. And that's why we can't wait 2023. We have to start continuing building the momentum we have lost because of all these geopolitical elements, and to have that. The second point, Maria, you wanted me to comment, and of course for me, social justice is at the start of every. We cannot just have top-down policies that don't putting people at the center of the problem and getting people along, as you said. And of course, that's a big issue for Europe, for a start, even if we are not, of course, we are in the most favorable position to do that. And how you bring transition that is, you know, getting the public money for transition to the right hands, not to. You know, I'm very much against the energy treaty. You may have seen me, or so those who follow what I'm saying. The company are suing government because they want to continue to pollute. We can't accept that. We're just very much aligned with Ignacio said. So we need really to have the transition has to lend the public money and the support, the solidarity needed in the right hands, that is the communities that are affected. So I do think that we need to rethink what social justice means. And it's not only just compensated ex post. It's about building the transition ex ante with the communities who are affected in the coal regions, in other regions, and really to make this happen again, to have the voice of the people and to envisage the future together with them. And I do think that there is some European instruments who are not bad, but they are so small. The Just Transition Fund, the social transition, the social element because of the carbon price, if we extend the market, this is not enough. So there is, in my view, a disconnect still between the view that we need social justice, which is, as Farhana remember, it is really in the core of the principle of Paris Agreement and the way we are delivering on that. So that's my concern for the future, even the future days in that COP.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. So, you know, we could continue for hours and hours, but COP continues as well, and we need to move. So let me conclude with a few thoughts. The first one is that we have come, and well, Laurence and Farhana for many more years than myself and Ignacio, but we know what is the why, we know about the what, and now it's all about the how. How do we accelerate the implementation of these plans and pledges? It is about how do we scale solutions at a global level, and that means also developed and developing countries that need to be tailored to those, and that it needs to include all. And it's also about we absolutely need to have emissions in the next decade, so we must go all in, so all countries, all sectors, all geographies for 2030. And with that, I conclude. Many thanks.